Why are we attending school? If preparing for a future, if that future might not exist? This question underpinned the entire school striking movement around the world. I started striking in 2018 when I was 16 years old, only because just at the time I thought the other protesters in Europe were just really cool and I wanted to be a part of them. I also grew up in the shadows of Iceland's women's rights movement, which I always thought was really cool and I secretly wanted to be there, but yeah. I also really like nature. I grew up in a town on the south coast of Iceland. I went outside to play every day, no matter the weather, running around in the midnight sun, kayaking, and I was always amazed by the elements around me. Striking just seemed like the logical thing to do, and also to be a part of the cool kids. It was not that deep at the time. But suddenly the gravity of the situation started to sink a little bit more in. Every strike I went to, every speech I listened to, I learned more and more about this climate crisis, starting to feel really anxious about the future. When the movement had gathered enough momentum, we were invited to speak with the minister's cabinet, and boy, was I going to tell them. We presented our demands, a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions before 2030, and many other reasonable demands supported by science. I expected them to say, of course, how could we not see this? I'm so sorry, we just thought the hockey stick ref was downside. I'm so sorry, we'll do what you say. But that was unfortunately not the case, and even a 16-year-old could see through their linguistic loopholes and circling answers. I was so confused. They seemed to understand the problem, but they were not responding to it or panicking like I was. After the meeting had concluded and they had formally rejected to sign our demands, I felt angry, and as I was walking out, I turned back towards them and I said, so what am I supposed to do? Should I even go to university if the future is going to be full of disasters? I had a lot of dreams at the time, but they all just felt so pointless. I felt my future shrink. The time span that I expected my life to be spread over didn't feel so much like I could be anything I dreamed of being, like everyone tells you. I kept going to the strikes, but it felt so strange, shouting words of panic and destruction. The world is expected to face a mass extinction event in this lifetime. How do you even start to think about this? I don't think I fully grasped the gravity of the sentence until August 2019, when it was announced in the news that Hallgrímsdóttir Glacier is the first Icelandic glacier to be declared dead after years of slowly disappearing from human-caused climate change. While being so focused on graphs and policy documents, I had forgotten about my dear old friends that I looked up to, the glaciers. Now, the difference between a chunk of ice and a glacier is that a glacier is alive, expanding and contracting in the winter and summer, breathing in and out the thousands of years of ice collected at the top that flows out on the bottom, creating these majestic crystal shapes and caves. Besides being insanely beautiful, 1 billion people depend on the water running from the Himalaya glacier, and most of Iceland's hydropower energy comes from glacial rivers. But Hallgrímsdóttir is no longer moving, a dead piece of ice. There was a funeral held where scientists, locals, politicians, and activists walked up to the glacier and installed a plaque, a letter to the future written by Anders Snær Magnússon. Hallgrímsdóttir is the first Icelandic glacier to lose its status as a glacier. In the next 200 years, all of our glaciers are expected to follow the same path. This monument is to acknowledge that we know what is happening and we know what needs to be done. Only you know if we did it. August 2019, 415 parts per million. Gathering there in the silence on the once glacier, now frozen soil, a sense of grief finally started to pour over me, realizing what was happening and what we were losing. I walked over a hill and silently wept, letting out all of the emotions that had been building up. I felt the presence of a dying friend. Iceland is not a very big country with impressive colosseums or buildings to remember our past, but to me, a glacier is the best monument of history, a testament to the thousands of years we have lived on this island. Now this eternal monument is disappearing. I don't think our monkey brains have developed to be particularly attuned to the passing of length of time. We talk about time like we know what it means, like we can justly think about the next 100 years. I can imagine that a glacier has a much better sense of this, having watched our ancestor cradle to grave. While walking down from the funeral, overlooking Hallgrímsdóttir Glacier, Hallgrímsdóttir's larger brother, I thought about what I wanted to do. The thing I kept thinking about was this word, we expect. We expect a certain future, we expect that under current emission pathways disaster will arise, but it's not certain, not if I decide to change the outcome. Seeing a glacier die can make you feel like disaster is already here. and that the world is going to be full of disasters, but by thinking that I'm giving in to that world full of disasters. Instead of accepting that this is how the future was going to be, I decided to do anything to change this expected outcome. And I looked around me and saw that a lot of people were feeling the same way, walking down from the funeral. Really afraid, but more than ever, ready to do anything to change the expected outcome. So we started talking and we started planning for a future where we win, a future where we are a part of the millions around the world that want to change this expected outcome. And planning for a future where people care about the environment requires people to actually know their environment. So over the pandemic, I studied to become a glacier guide and worked over the summer showing people that glaciers are really magical and really cool. Do you want to switch the slide? Do you want to switch the slide? I'm so sorry. And again, maybe. It's my fault. Yes, this is a glacier guide. I always tell people after they learn to ice climb, solving the climate crisis is no biggie. It's really, really easy. And I also got more involved with politics with a more serious town, now serving as a vice member of parliament in Iceland, because our generation deserves a seat at the table when decisions are being made about our future. And yes, as is obvious, I did decide on coming to university in the end, now studying economics and environmental science, because I plan on a long career of implementing climate action and changing the way our society is structured. You're very welcome to call me unrealistic, but I'd much rather have too much hope than to give up. So when you see a news headline that says, the world is no longer expected to reach 1.5 degrees of warming, remember that this calculation is accounting for you sitting here and doing nothing. Walking away from here and yeah, not doing anything. The oil companies that pollute our atmosphere, they want so bad to kill our hope because that makes us give up on our ambitious solutions, targets, and compromise our solutions. And these are going to be strange times. The future will change no matter what, but it is up to us to plan for a future of winning and deliver the solutions we want to see. If you expect yourself to take action and make fighting the climate crisis a part of your lifetime mission, we can expect to see a much better future, and we can expect that Åkjökull will one day return. Thank you so much.